see how I do this. It is a true pleasure to be with you this morning. A lot has happened since the last time that we were together, about 18 months ago. There is a new country, the Republic of South Sudan. The U.S. economy has bumped up at least twice. A new supplementary poverty measure is in place, pioneered in New York, and Mayor Bloomberg was among the first to embrace it. The Yankees were eliminated by the Detroit Tigers. When I say the economy has bumped up, that doesn't necessarily translate to the people we serve. They get slammed by the slams, but unfortunately, they're not part of the bounce back up. And I think we have to do something about that. And your presence here today demonstrates that we're ready. Not only is it an moral imperative to help our fellow man, but it is a professional obligation, like Marielena was saying. It is the profession we have chosen. It is what we profess to do and who we profess to serve. Renowned Puerto Rican educator, writer, journalist, and the first female lawyer to work in the Department of Justice in Puerto Rico, Milita Ventos, used to say, and I'm paraphrasing, any human being, in order to wear such a name, is obligated to leave the world better than he found it. Ralph Waldo Emerson and Robert Baden-Powell had also alluded to that before Milita. And I think Patricia Cornwell also said it later. But I am quoting Milita because she goes on to say that the reason for this is that the purpose of life is not to be happy. One lives to learn, to develop a sense of how beautiful and how cruel life is, to admire this great mystery that man has eternally endeavored to, but never has been able to comprehend. Why do people suffer? Why are some denied the opportunity to make the right or wrong choices in life? I don't know, you don't know, but by selecting our profession, we chose to remedy them. For too long, however, we have struggled individually, each of us, in our own sphere of influence. And that has merit, and I commend each of you for the work that you do every day. As a strategy, that has some effect, but it's not sufficient. 46.2 million Americans wake up every day in poverty, nearly 1 in 6. In Puerto Rico, 1 out of every 2 children, 56%, does not reach the poverty threshold. 20 to 21,000 children die every day around the world because of poverty, hunger, malnutrition, maltreatment, and preventable diseases. Drug and alcohol abuse reach younger age children every year. Adolescent pregnancy among Hispanics continues at an alarming pace. Alabama has now supplanted Arizona in terms of who has the most repressive immigration law. Unemployment rates are unrelenting. And Congress has not passed the jobs bill, but was willing to close the federal government unless funds for education and human services were curtailed. This at a time when economists like Jeffrey Sachs are telling us that investing in education is the path to restoring civilization. must be achieved in order to counter poverty and other social ills. The question we must ask ourselves is, why is it so difficult for social workers to make ourselves heard, to be recognized as catalysts for social transformation? We know the barriers all too well. We lack money. We're not usually self-employed as our doctors and lawyers and business owners. Being salaried workers not only limits our influence in terms of available funds, but to contribute our range of action, limits our range of action. We're obligated to conform to agency regulations and to submit to the will of the board of directors. But it's more than that. We're not united as a profession. In fact, when I went to school, before most of you were born, social workers were discouraged from getting involved in political action. Stay neutral was a warning, and many of us heeded that warning. Now, I'm not talking about partisan politics, nor advocating that we occupy any area, bridge, building, or street. Although it's not too hard to understand their frustrations for the people who are in the occupying movement. In the last 10 years, the income of the bottom 10% declined by over 12% since 1999 when it was at its peak. While the top 10% has experienced a decline of only 1.5%. The only group to have significant income gains is the richest 1%. According to SACS, again, about 23% of all income in this country goes to the richest 1%. I'll say that. About 23% of all income goes to the richest 1%. The banks receive $70 billion from a tax-funded bailout, and we get slapped with a $5 fee for using our ATM cards. So I am talking here about speaking up for what is right, regardless of whether or not it's the political party you belong to that needs to listen. Some of you who work in advocacy do that quite well already. The rest of us need to realize that social action is not only for the advocates, it is a requirement for all of us to meet the social and political responsibility we have chosen for ourselves. We are the experts in human relationships. We are the experts in expressing the needs of our clientele. We have the professional concerns that warrant exercising the power inherent in our commitment to serve the people who most need us. But we must do our homework. We need to get organized and get involved. We cannot, all of us, follow all of the areas of concern, so we need to divide, we need to assign areas of responsibilities. We need to be following at the General Assembly everything they do, not only when one issue, like licensing license out. We need to be aware of everything they do on a daily basis and forge those relationships on a daily basis. So when an issue does come out, we already have the base for doing that. We have specialized content knowledge, but we need to develop our political skills and influence to develop recognition and relationships that enable us to advocate for those we have chosen to serve. We need to empower our clients to work within the law, but to work. To accept pressure by writing letters, by marching, by raising funds, by attending and testifying at public hearings, by educating legislators about investigatory findings, by joining other interest groups and by proposing practical solutions to real problems. Bringing about transformation is not, or even incremental change, is not, as we know all too well, an easy job. It means unifying many agendas, many interests, at many levels to a common endeavor. A concerted effort towards specific and common goals, to gain awareness of the situation, to assess the alternative courses of action, develop a shared vision, and then to act together to move the country toward that vision. That is a task for all of us. We also need to look internally. I know the theme of the conference is Palante, and we've been talking about how best to do that. But I believe in order to move forward in the right direction, we need to determine how we are progressing, if we're moving in the right direction, and what, if any, courses of action need to be adjusted. For example, we need to know if our clients are better off as a result of our intervention. And if not, why not? We must take the time to examine in depth the underlying problems, make a carefully pondered assessment of the client's situation, and engage with the client in setting forth a plan of actions that results in an improved state for him or her. Or are we too busy day to day moving through transactions, referrals, procedures, without looking at the client, the results for the client? How many users of our services are really better off? And why are they better off? We need to collect data, including data about the client's perception of our services. How are we applying knowledge, integrating practice wisdom with theory? Are we making the right recommendations for the needs of the client, the relationships the client has, the risks the client takes, the risks that we must take? Dare to assume some risk. Therein lies leadership. Is the progress sufficient, or are we simply conducting those day-to-day transactions? What really needs to be done to bring transformational change, to really help that client move to a more desired state? We need to bring passion back to our work. Our decisions we may be impacted by expediency. How are we utilizing evidence-based practice concepts? Are we limiting the client's full participation because we have predetermined based on the prior evidence the courses of actions that we must take in this particular case? Or do we truly let the evidence, in this case, determine the course of action? What is the impact of the legal context in our practice decisions? How do we establish a balance between needs, risks, and available resources and services? The juxtaposition of these competing pressures and values, the legal environment, the evidence-based practice impetus, accountability, respect for all people, even perpetrators of violence, even the mother who failed to protect her child because she needed to have a man next to her. We cannot forget those people. They are also our clients. Even if the evidence says a sexual abuser has little chance of rectification and improvement, we must treat the underlying causes of that mother who failed to protect her child. Why? What does she need? She needs validation so that she can be there to protect the child the next time. How do we help her? So when we talk about family-centered practice, we need to look at those less attractive clients because we chose a profession that vowed to respect all people. These conflicting pressures can create a climate of anxiety that could inhibit progress for the client, assign blame to the worker, or at best generate uncertainty as we attempt to formulate social intervention. In order to articulate the right answers to all these questions, we really need to look at the results of case decisions in the client's lives and be willing to live with that uncertainty. Because, after all, that's why we chose this profession. We need to move conscientiously and consciously forward, balancing, refining our knowledge and our practice. And we need to educate our neighbors, the climate for the people we serve, even among Hispanic population, even among the Hispanics themselves. The climate for those who are still lower in the echelon gets harsher every day. You hear the people who have a job say, in this climate, where unemployment is, as I said, unrelenting, is that if anyone really wants to work, they will find a job. The people who don't work is because they don't really want to work. That's what we hear. And so we need to not only work with our clients, we need to really work with that context. As social workers in a democratic society, we are committed to fairness, to social justice for each and every member of society. Our philosophy is founded on the belief in the intrinsic value of the human being and in the recognition of the right of each person to his or her physical, social, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual well-being in fulfilling their responsibility to contribute to the general welfare. We have the individual and collective obligation to make this principle a reality for every member of our society. That is the reason for social work as a profession. What if President Lyndon B. Johnson, having the power, we have the duty? So, adelante, sin miedo. I am proud to be one of you.
Thank you so much for your remarks. As you were concluding, I was thinking to myself that I would imagine that every single person in this room embodies the spirit and the passion, the commitment and the values. That's the best of the social work profession that we need to be able to move forward together as a network. Being in the room with all of you, with that recognition, we all recognize that within ourselves and with each other. That's leadership, collective leadership, and I think a certain amount of power that we have right here in this room right now. A number of organizations are exhibiting as part of this, this gathering today, and I want to thank them. They've contributed some resources to our being able to hold this conference, and I want to acknowledge them. Pride Healthcare, the Hispanic Federation, Mutual of America, and of course the Puerto Rican Family Institute.